Hey everybody, this is Rydo and we are back to Hearthstone. So, we haven't made a great amount of progress here. I'm gonna just simplify this for me, since we haven't done Shaman or Warlock enough to get any victories. What I'm going to do instead is just focus on spells. Let's see if we can get at least one quest done. So, switch over here. And we go to casual on wild, and then the question is, what of my builds, which I don't have very many of them, do I, is a spells deck. I guess it's the secrets deck, isn't it? And if it's a secrets deck is a spells deck, then I'll go back to playing standard and rank 23, because theoretically that should be easier. Rank 23 people versus casual should be easier. So I've managed not to actually talk about any of the actual news up to this point. I was talking about how 10K seems to be the sweet spot for whether or not your YouTube channel is a successful one, and that seems about right, and kind of says that's says something when I have less than 200 subscribers. But I mean, I am actively publishing. I put out tons of videos. It's just, are they quality? Are they good? And that's the question, and the answer is probably no. Let's see. Each one of these is a spell, including the coins, so playing one hand here might very well get all spells done. Also, Facebook's not succeeding at all for me. I'm not super surprised about that. Facebook inherently is not going to be a great successful endeavor for me. Twitter, I have more Twitter followers than I have YouTube followers, which is a problem, but we know that a significant portion of Twitter followers are bots, but that's fine. I suppose that's just going to be the case kind of for a lot of things. Google Plus, Twitter and Google Plus both have the extra benefit of actually communicating with people, whereas Facebook nobody has ever actually communicated to that channel and had anything to say at all. So nobody's looking at Tumblr's the same way. Nobody's ever tried to communicate through Tumblr, to my knowledge. I don't really understand Tumblr, so maybe they have and I've just missed it. But on Twitter in particular, Twitter has always been this service that's good for talking to more famous people and following more famous people, and so famous people are on it, and because of that, there's I've talked to and followed and been able to find a lot of video game producers and content creators, and I've gotten a lot of retweets and a lot of support from video game creators because of that also. And so that's something to consider, is that the video game industry people are on Twitter, and that's why I like Twitter. And Facebook and Tumblr, in comparison, not very helpful. Let's see. Do I want to wait? No, I think I don't really need to bother to wait with that character, because I don't think I have anything that really powers this guy up. But I do need to keep playing spells. So yeah, a lot of that stuff I just don't really know. I don't know how to be a better Twitterer. I don't know how to be a better Facebooker. I don't want to annoy people, but I think you don't really have to worry too much about that because people can block you, and it seems like the really big people don't respond to them. Like, a good example of this is Always Sometimes Monsters is going on right now, and Jim Sterling was either a Kickstarter backer for that, or they were just pandering and they put Jim Sterling in the game. And oh darn it, I dropped the mouse. There we go. Because he's in the game, I put a comment to him directly. I'm like, you're in this game, and like, just to see if he'd retweet it. Didn't retweet it. So which is kind of funny and fine in itself, because it's not like I'm the hugest fan of his. Anyways, he's funny and he's playing a character, but he's playing a character that's kind of a drama queen, in the sense that he's always going after drama. One of his latest videos, which makes a very good argument that I kind of agree with, at least in the facetious argument he's making this argument, that that it's perfectly fine to steal Nintendo's copyrighted video games and like hack them into a NES Mini, because Nintendo is continuously violating and ignoring fair use to steal money through Content ID and YouTube, which is, I guess, fair enough. I mean, the argument kind of stands that that if you're what's good for the goose is good for the gander, and alright, choose a friendly minion, swap it with a minion in your deck.
Everyone has a price.
Interesting. Interesting move there, but I think that worked actually kind of nicely. So yeah, he does provocative things, and it eventually, well, no, he got sued, not really for doing anything very provocative, honestly. I mean, he was the target because of his review versus other reviews, but if it wasn't Jim Sterling that Digital Homicide sued, it would have just been somebody else. They picked their target and failed. So yeah, and as a character, he's fine. Jim Sterling is, but then as the not character, he kind of also is the same character he's playing. In similar ways, you might say Milo Yiannopoulos is the same way. To say similar things is that he probably is playing a character, but on the other hand, he's probably not too far from the character he's playing. And arguably in his case, the character he's playing that's the most unlike himself is the character of the respectable journalist, instead of the provocateur. I don't know about PewDiePie at all, though. I assume that almost all of that is fake, and all the early stuff he's completely said was fake himself. So, but even when he's being honest, I don't know how much of it is. Same would be true, and I like it to equate PewDiePie to a more family-friendly, slightly more family-friendly version of Howard Stern. Like, I have no idea what Howard Stern is when he's not in front of a camera or on the radio. No clue at all. But I'm kind of ranting here, and we've got news things to talk about. So let's talk about it. Axiom Verge is getting a physical copy, PS4, Vita, Wii U release. Almost certainly that Wii U release will turn into a Switch release. I wouldn't be surprised if that is incredibly easy for other people to do. Also, like, I bet it's really easy to turn a Wii U game into a Switch game. Somebody asked me if I was going to play Lego City Undercover and Batman, and I responded to them. Batman, the Arkham series, Arkham Knight, and Arkham Asylum, and all that, those 4 games. And I told them, well, yeah, Lego City Undercover, I probably will eventually get down to it. I'll try to save my money as much as possible to begin with. I don't want to end up paying $60 for a remake, in particular of a like Nintendo Wii game. Also, I'm gonna stupidly probably ignore the high chance that it doesn't run that well. But
job's done.
But yeah, I'm gonna try to save my money, but I'm also gonna run out of Lego games pretty soon too, and that's very possibly the last Lego game that ever comes out that's not built into Lego Dimensions. And if Lego Dimensions doesn't come to PC, in the end, I think this is what happens: is that they decide, TT Games just gives up on the concept of having PC game ports at all. They just stop releasing them and only go for console ports with Lego Dimension things, and everything just becomes Lego Dimensions, which, okay, fine. And then by the time I get around to being capable of spending, I calculated it again, and it's probably still somewhere around $1,500 to own a Xbox One Scorpio, a PlayStation 4 Pro, and an external box that can record those videos. And that's $1,500 before you spend probably $100 on Lego Dimensions just for the base couple of expansions. And then by the time I get around to it, a lot of those character packs, a lot of those level packs, a lot of that stuff may not be available. That is the question of Lego Dimensions in particular, is that in some way they kind of have to keep the same expansions taking up shelf space, and retailers aren't gonna like that. They're not gonna like a second release of character expansions unless the first release sells. And there will be certain character expansions that sell more than others, and that's exactly what Walmart does. They say, well, this sells better than this, so let's never have this expansion available. And then as a consumer, I will have to then go to collectors and say, I need a full collection of all the character and level expansions and story packs of the Lego Dimensions. And as the years go by, that would just get more and more expensive. So it then either comes down to me skipping parts, which is very possible, or something else, or paying a lot of money. And then, but moving on, because I'm kind of just ranting about where Lego looks like it's going to go. But Lego may just continuously make more standalone games too, but I kind of doubt it. But then they also asked about Arkham Knight. That's what the next thing. And I explained to them, it's like, well, here's the thing about Arkham Knight. And I think I've already said this. It's like, I really didn't like the combo system. Although I've heard that, well, I didn't like Arkham Asylum, the first game in the series, combo system. But it sounds like I was watching a review that got easier in Arkham Knight, incredibly easy actually. So that might not be really a big issue. It wasn't a huge issue if I just play on easy anyways, but there's no new Batman movie that really means I should go play the Batman games. There's no real reason. Let's go ahead and kill this guy. So, like, when I pick to play a game, there's several reasons, and one of those, the default reason is random. The default reason is random. I want to play it. I've been seeing it in my my collection of games, and I've thought to myself, I'd really like to play that game. That's the default option. But before that, the thing is, what would cause more people to Google a phrase? What would cause more people to look for a YouTube video? And so, if the Lego Batman movie is coming out, that would have been a perfect time for me to play Lego Batman the video game. Even though they're not really connected, Lego Batman will be in the search phrases that will get me a few views. Now, how long do people stay with that video? I don't know. Probably not that long if they're looking for something completely different. But in the end of the day, this is kind of how all of YouTube works. Is you've got to stumble onto something, or somebody has to recommend something to you. And if somebody's recommending something to you, inherently, you probably stumbled. The person that's recommending it to you probably stumbled on it. So there is a level where it just feels like trickery. That is true, but you can't really do anything about that. That's what one person would call trickery, people in YouTube content creators would call visibility. And so, if there's a new Batman something coming out, if there's a new Batman series gets announced, that might be a good motivator to do it. If there's a new movie coming out, if the comic books are doing something incredibly crazy that the news, like regular news, is talking about, maybe that would be interesting enough to bring people's attention to it. But until something like that happens, there's really no reason why I'd play Batman, particularly since I don't really want to play that game. So that's kind of just how it goes. If there was an anniversary, that too would be a good reason. Like if it was the 50th, or I think we're already past the 50th anniversary for Batman, but or DC Detective Comics. So yeah, maybe then, but until then, there's no real reason. And I bring all of this up and go on this rant again, and this is just taking up time I really don't have to say, well, I own Axiom Verge, and since I now know it's getting a physical release, I probably will try to schedule playing Axiom Verge to air when that release comes out. Now, unfortunately, I don't think I actually know the date yet, and that's kind of the problem. Speaking of also something we don't know the date of, Shadow of Mordor sequel, Shadow of War, has been leaked through, I think, like a Target website ad, and it says the date is August 22, and then I have underlined here, leak, question mark? Then if you know the date, is that really a leak at that point? Yeah, I'm gonna lose. Yeah, all this guy has to do is attack, and he's won. Tax is coming to Steam in 10 more countries, so that kind of sucks for those countries. None of them are mine, but I don't know. If I don't already pay tax. It may very well be the case that I already do. So that's really just kind of Steam becoming more legitimate in the long run, I think. And I still haven't played enough spell cards, and that's all I'm gonna do in this recording session, I bet. It's just get one quest done. Excuse me. Resident Evil 7 is giving out a free DLC called Not a Hero that stars Chris Redfield. To me, that seems like they are incredibly desperate to make Chris Redfield be the main hero of the Resident Evil series and just have that continuously have a continuous story and have a main character that they can focus on, which in itself is not a terrible thought. I would much more prefer Leon Kennedy, but if we had been watching like Jill and Leon for the beginning of Resident Evil 1 all the way to Resident Evil 7, that would be fine. I mean, that's Kratos in the God of War series, Uncharted, Nathan Drake in the Uncharted series. All of those series have a main character. Almost every series has a main character that you focus through as you go throughout the whole thing. So that would have been fine. But the problem now is they just had some great success with the Resident Evil 7 by setting it just barely in the Resident Evil universe. And having characters that aren't a member of STARS or BOW or whatever, non-military people. And see, they're trying to push military back in there, and military has never really worked. Even in Resident Evil 4, which is still, in my opinion, the best Resident Evil, he's not particularly military in the sense that he's following any strict protocols, or he's super muscly, or that he's got backup. And it just seems like they're going to desperately take the wrong lessons from this. And isn't that Japanese game companies in a nutshell? It really is. I mean, should have seen it coming. I mean, I'm saying it like it's already been done, and maybe they'll do something amazing with this DLC, and maybe it will take it in a direction that's really interesting. But no, I bet they don't. I bet that DLC is the signal flag for them to try to do something completely different from RE7 that's gonna fail. That they're gonna try to take in a different direction like RE6. However, I have been wrong. I have been very, very wrong, haven't I? Because we have definitely seen that we've definitely seen that I thought RE7 was going to be way too short. It is too short, but it's not that short. And people didn't complain about it, so I was wrong there. and I thought that RE7 might just be a total buggy mess, and there's been no talk of any bugs whatsoever. And I thought it might be just a bad game in general, and I was wrong on all those aspects. So I may very well be wrong about the Chris Redfield thing too. Switch Joy-Cons apparently are having a desync issue where the left stick, from what I hear, is disconnecting or lagging to a pretty extreme amount. So that's something to also keep in mind, I suppose.
There we go.
Let's see, we're running out of time. Let's hurry up here. A remake of a Master System game has had the ability to switch between. It has this ability to switch between HD graphics and 8-bit graphics. It's kind of a platformer game, and 8-bit audio and HD audio, I suppose is what you would generally call it, although HD audio means something different. And originally I had this written down as a new game because I did not recognize that it was a remake of a Master System game. Very few people had Master System games, and I thought it was a brand new game. And I have written here very specifically, this is a dumb idea, because in general that would be a pretty dumb concept to have a game that's brand new and then have this major selling point be that it can go back and forth between old graphics and new graphics. And we've seen that. I mean, we saw it in a 30-second hero, half-minute hero. Yeah. And I didn't really like the old graphics there, and we ended up having to play the old graphics in several places because it didn't completely convert over everything. In general, I don't think the concept's that great. Anyways, so like as a main selling point, I still would say it's a dumb idea, but I also need to learn myself and point out to myself, like, I almost definitely reported inaccurate information by saying it was a new game, and that's 100% the fact that I didn't do my research. And as I'm trying to improve myself as somewhat of a journalist, as a critic too, I'm not really a journalist, I'm a critic who talks about news. I should improve myself and do the research more often than I do. I know, but I don't have time. And I assume somebody in the comments will eventually correct me if I say something completely wrong. And I really haven't ever had a horrible issue there where people were just completely upset with me for saying something wrong. So I think I do a decent job. Valve has released a software development kit for 3D moving audio. Great. Will it become an industry standard? Who knows? That's kind of the way this always works, is all kinds of big companies release all kinds of SDKs for all kinds of things, and if people jump on it and use it, great, it helps the industry. Otherwise it just sits around and gets used by very few people. It doesn't really split the industry any more than it already is, because it by default everybody is using their own proprietary 3D audio things if they're doing 3D audio at this point. I imagine this is just something that they learned as they're making their 3D VR goggles. I'm trying to just run through. Halo will always have split screen going forward, according to somebody. Didn't quote anybody here. that's a big commitment to say always, but I think almost all the Halo games did have split screen multiplayer anyways, and maybe there was one game that came out that they got rid of that. Marvel says it wants the video game developers to use their characters to tell news stories. Great. What does Disney have to say about that? I wonder. I guess they don't care in a long way. I bet Disney and the Marvel movie cinematic universe and all of that doesn't really care if the comic book universe does something different with their characters or if the video game universes do something with their characters. And I guess what they're mostly confirming here is that they want them to do separate from the comic books and the movies and not just copy and paste. Which, okay, so that's good. That means we'll get news story things. ZeniMax has filed for a permanent injunction against Oculus to stop them from selling pretty much anything ever, because they're going to try and claim anything that ZeniMax makes is from stolen copyrighted things. I don't think ZeniMax is going to succeed there, but this was the expected. There's this weird Rocky Horror cell phone game that I saw that's on Kickstarter. I wouldn't say supported or anything. I wouldn't even be certain that they aren't just ripping off the copyright and don't have any permission. The game looked awful. But the idea of having a Rocky Horror game or any musical game is an interesting one, and that's where this article was coming from. Is like, why don't we have any musical games that aren't like Rock Band where you do music, but musicals like a Broadway musical game? That's an interesting concept. Parappa the Rapper maybe is a musical game. Maybe there's a few others. It probably is just too much work, and it probably doesn't work very well in video games because when you make a mistake, it usually inherently would mess up the music playing. But the idea, the concept of a Rocky Horror game of any kind is interesting. And then finally, as we're going to wrap up here, and I'm just speeding through all this, we didn't make any progress here. I'm going to spend the entire rest of the day. It's 4:30 in the afternoon right now. I probably will be at least midnight by the time I get all of this done. If only I could just play against my own people and succeed that way, but that's not available this week. There's this game that was labeled as very early pre-alpha. I think it was the Rocky Horror game. Yeah, it was. These words mean something when you say something's in alpha, and very early pre-alpha don't mean anything. The video game industry needs to stop doing this. Look, if something's in alpha, that's where you begin. The second you say, I'm going to make a game, that game is an alpha. There's nothing before alpha. So, pre-alpha is BS. Very early pre-alpha is super BS. It just doesn't imply anything. All it really is them showing off something and saying, please don't hate it because it looks awful. And you might as well just put that down at the bottom of the screen then. Let's just say, please don't hate this, work in development. I know it looks bad, I'll work on it. Well, here you can hear me rip off that page, and that's going to be it for me using paper for my news. Now I've got little paper pieces everywhere. That was a bad idea. So I'll almost certainly be onto my whiteboard in the next recording. That's going to be it for this recording session. Sorry I didn't make more progress. Didn't have a lot of news to really talk about either, so definitely stretched. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want a friend or follow me on basically any social media sites, there's a whole bunch of links down below. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.